Right about trying to figure out what it's all about. Existentialist, am I worth anything or just a scout? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. Spending time all alone, sending my songs to the phone, dreaming of a better home, while focused on trying to hone this craft, witchcraft. I hope the brujas let this last.
I don't know if the earth is painted blue. I don't know.
That was great sounds of Watson with Outside on WNHH LP 103.5 FM New Haven. Myself, Preston, with my partner in crime, Long Island raised, Elm City made, EZ BlueZ is in the building. EZ BlueZ, you're better with introductions more than me. Who do we have with us today on Behind the Brand?
Ladies and gentlemen, the great philosopher Whitney of Houston once did say that I believe the children are the future. Teach them well and let them lead the way. This is what is so important because it is not just about the now, but it is about the future that is what is important for all of us. To understand that when we invest upon the future, we invest upon the generations to come, we are truly investing on the happiness of where we can be. This next person works very, very hard in the community to understand that it is more than just the now. For that, I want you to put your hands together, not if you're driving. If you're driving, please keep your hands at 10 and 2. We do not need any accidents. But mentally, I want you to put the hands together for the amazing, the fantastic, the phenomenal Christian Shaboo.
Easy. Preston, thank you so much for having me on the show. I got to tell you, that is going to be the first and only time in my life that I am in the same sentence as Whitney Houston. So thank you, and I appreciate that intro.
The man tries his hardest. He really does.
We aim to
thought,
please.
intuition, love.
So much fun. This is the best part of my week, to be honest with you. No, but what people might have not gotten from the introduction itself, you are someone who actually goes in and not in the gentrification type of way, invests in your community, invests in your neighborhood, and make sure that community members can stand up and stand on their own. What got you onto that path? And I know that, I took the jump to all the incredible things you're doing. We'll get to the smaller things you do as well.
Sure. Well, again, thank you all so much for having me on and that introduction. And what got me on this path, I had the incredible fortune to have so many adults in my life when I was younger really invest in me and see potential in me when I couldn't see it in myself. And when I tell you at a pretty early age, I was clear of just like how transformative that was and how it was going to be in my life, right? I think about the things like, whether it's as simple as going to college, and 6 years prior while I was in middle school, having a teacher, see the potential in me and see that my boredom that I had in class was not actually me being bored with the subject, but I had to be challenged. But the thing that was in my way was a lot of the stuff that was going on in my life, some drama and trauma in my family and stuff like that. And if it weren't for that teacher to see that potential, or another teacher to see that like actually there was some leadership skill and potential that was just being untapped, and to invite me into things like student council. I've got dozens and dozens of examples of adults seeing the potential in me before I could for myself, and that really being transformative. And then, I think pretty early on in my professional career, I realized that is just not the reality for so many young people. Absolutely, there are young people that have great family members in their life, have great educators in their life, but more often than not, there are more young people that need adults in their life, whoever it is in the community, to see that potential in them, and to say like, no, you actually can reach this bar and beyond, and I have that faith, and I'm here to support you in that. So that's what I'd say, from a macro sense, really got me in to really investing in community in the ways that I have so far and been able to.
I'm inspired.
Well, that was awesome, and I love how you pointed that out. And I do think we all need more positive adults in our lives, but also just positive every aspect of it, whether it be
Yeah.
I've learned more from the people I've stood shoulder to shoulder with than I have from, you know, the generations prior. And again, that's sure have to do with trauma and nonsense and shenanigans, and definitely not the right ways to go about things. But I do love how it is coming from this pure point of love and this pure point of understanding that, you know, people, you know, we need each other. We are a very communal entity, and, you know, a communal species. So when we sit there and try to put the positive forward, that's when we can grow completely as a community and a generation. Um, what was the first step for you in the giving back aspect? Because you talked about some of the teachers and stuff like that that paid it forward to you. What was the first step for you to pay it backwards?
Wow. That's a great question. You know, I think again, I had a lot of opportunities, probably around like the high school age, right? Whether it was through student council or other leadership opportunities then, that I grew up in a small town in New Hampshire. And so there were a lot of opportunities actually to get involved because our town was so small, because there was only one high school. And so that was a really great opportunity for me to engage with my community, whether it was older people in my community and giving back in that way, whether it was giving back to young people in some way, even though I was a young person, right? Like that usually manifested as like some sort of like sports camps or things like that, you know, like being in proximity to opportunities to contribute to the community beyond just my high school community itself and my peers and the teachers and adults there. I think that that's probably what really built that foundation. And I'd say also too that, I mean, having a mom who was just really good at giving back and doing that in a way that was just so incredibly selfless and just trying to find ways to contribute to obviously our family, but the family broader sense around us. Like, I mean, that was my foundation, right? And so going into college and then going into my early professional career, I mean, it was always a thing that I was seeking. It became, you know, part of my value set, right? That like whatever work I was doing, I needed to be able to contribute to something beyond myself and beyond what like whatever my professional pursuit was. You know, at times it was I was pursuing an acting career. There's now I pursue my own business, but whatever it is, like always making sure that I'm clear about how I'm contributing to my community around me is just core to who I am.
Well, see, I love that, and I'm gonna push back just a little bit
Sure.
for the youth that are out there right now that are very disenfranchised with their community, very disenfranchised with how they feel and how they feel underrepresented by their community. I can't say that that happens in. I mean, it happens in New Haven, but it doesn't happen as much in New Haven because I know for a fact with three teenagers out in the world right now, New Haven has taken some incredible steps to make sure that you know the youth is catered to, and as they should be. But how do you encourage some of the disenfranchised youth that are out there that are even listening to this show right now? Be like, yeah, this guy can talk this great game because he came from a small town in New Hampshire. I live
Mm.
in New Haven, and you know, it's tough for me to get up, you know, and get to the corner store to make sure that I can get that breakfast sandwich before I head off to school to be bored out of my mind.
Yeah, that's a great question. You know, I think when we talk about young people being disenfranchised, right, I think one, we need to acknowledge that we are still feeling and will continue to feel the effect of the pandemic for years to come, right? So I say that because, you know, I was in directly in a New Haven public school, high school, and still support in some work that I do there in high school in the community, which is one of our smaller magnet schools in New Haven. But I was there for a long time, right? And when I tell you there was a lot of engagement in that school, and it took time to build up that foundation of engagement for young people, whether that's like leadership opportunities or certain projects or ways that they were finding to contribute to the world around them. It was so incredibly disruptive, the pandemic, right? We know that, right? But when we talk about young people being disenfranchised right now, part of that, not all of it, but part of it is due to the fact that there was this temporary moment in time where we had to have a new normal where we were incredibly isolated, and then we're asked to come back into school communities in one year that was incredibly disruptive. And then last year was the first real experience where it was like, all right, we're back in school full time with one another. And that felt really different, right? Because things have been so disrupted. So in a lot of ways, when we think about the sort of like leadership opportunities or the ways to engage in our community and things like that, we're in a place, at least from my perspective, where we're building back up, right? Because things were so disrupted because of the pandemic. So that's number one. Now, when we talk about young people being disengaged, I think one, it starts with having a conversation with that young person to understand, like, what is it exactly that you're interested in, right? Like, I can't tell you how many times I've sat across from a young person one-on-one or in small groups. I just ask them, like, hey, what are the things you're passionate about or you get energized by? And they say, you know what? Nobody has really asked me that question. I can't tell you how many times that has been the case, right? And even if they have been asked once, it doesn't hurt to be asked twice, three times, a dozen times, right? Like that is such an important thing that we as adults, whatever your role is in that young person's life, in the community, like that is something that you can ask them and take a genuine interest in them. I think the other thing is to allow them to see that there is an opportunity to use whatever it is that they're interested in or think that they're interested in. Because I think that's another thing too for our young people, right? When we talk about particularly young people age 12, 13, 14, 15, somewhere around there, right? So many of them have not had the opportunity yet to engage with a thing that they might be interested in, right? And it's our responsibility, I think, as adults to help them find pathways to engage with it in small ways before they really fully commit to it. Because we do this thing in our education system, not just in New Haven, but across the country and culturally too, where young people get to 17, 18, and we say like, okay, cool, you're going to go to college? And they have to answer that question. Then we say, great, what are you going to focus on? What are you going to major in? Mm-hmm. Right. And we're asking them to do that when they haven't had a lot of time and opportunity to engage in things in different ways to say, hey, maybe I do want to pursue this as a career path. Right. So I think the more that we can, as adults, support young people in seeing how they can engage in things they might be interested in or do have a real interest in, and seeing how that can be a way to contribute to their community is really important. And the last thing I'll say is I think a lot of times, our ideas of, engaging with, giving back to the community, we think so big about it. We think big picture, like how can I do something that's going to impact all of New Haven or all of Connecticut or all of the country or all of the world, right? And one of the lessons that I still have to this day that I take with me came from my guidance counselor, Ken, from back in that small New England town day, where he said, hey, if you really want to like make change in this world, start as local as you can, right? Like, and some of that change first starts with you, but then it starts with like the community right around you. So for our young people that might say, oh, well, how can I get involved? Sometimes it's looking around like, what are the ways that you're already contributing or want to contribute to your home, your household, right? The neighborhood you live in, right? The small micro community within the community here in New Haven, right? So I think when we talk about really helping young people to understand how they can own their world and identify what their world is in this moment in time, that's a powerful reframe, I'd say.
Do you feel we overthink when it comes to giving back most of the time?
I think that we underestimate how much, I'm going to call it small acts, but small makes it sound insignificant. But we underestimate how much acts that might seem small to us, that don't seem like they're going to transform our community in some way, actually how much they do, transform or contribute to the community. So to your question, Preston, like, yeah, I do think we overthink it a little bit because we think about, or I'll just say for myself, like I do this too to this day. I overthink what the impact is going to be because I want to make an impact that's significant, when really like significant impact can come in this conversation we're having right now, can come if you sit down and really help somebody through, a challenging thing or a moment in time where they're trying to, make a decision, right? Like, so yeah, I think that we do overthink it because we think that impact has to look a certain way. And that's where we get caught.
We do get caught up. I do agree.
I love that. I love that answer. I absolutely love that answer. And I'm going to get more into that answer, but I got another pushback.
Let's go.
Real quick. You told the youth how, but you haven't told the youth why. Because you want to know something? I'm sitting here. I got the new Spider-Verse coming out for the PlayStation 5. Yep. I don't want to leave my couch. Okay, I'm like 12th ranked in Fortnite, and that's what I want to do. Why should I get up off my couch and invest in that community around me that, for a good portion of my life, told me I was a child, told me I didn't matter,
Mhm.
told me, I should be seen, not heard. So
Mm.
why should we as children, I'm old, but why should children, invest in the community? Look, I'm Peter Pan, bro. So let's be real. And I live in a pirate ship with my 3 children, so it works out well.
I mean, I'm a little upset you didn't invite us to the pirate ship then. That would have been a really nice place to do this interview.
Prestige was here. Preston was here last night. We watched silly wrestling. It was great.
Yeah.
Well, I think it gets back to one of the things we were saying just a few minutes ago, right? Which is we are we thrive off of community. Like that's my belief. We thrive and we continue to exist because of community, right? I think one of the most damaging things that I've seen in my lifetime in our culture broadly is this idea of like the self-made person, because it's just not true, right? Like nobody
Right.
does it on their own, right? Like you have a community around you, whatever that community looks like, family, friends, your town, your city, whatever it is, right? You have a community around you, right? So that's number one. Like I think that like that's an important thing for us to like have a conversation with young people, but for all of us in general. I think as far as telling young people, or yeah, like getting to the why, like that's a conversation, and a conversation over time with them to understand like what is your why. I think more often than not, right, you might get a young person early on that says like, oh, why, like community doesn't care about me, or like I don't really want to give back in some way, or whatever the case may be. I think that I think we I think when we're in conversation with each other, but specifically here with young people over time, to help peel back the layers, to help them see like what their why is to get to that, we will often see that there is something beyond themselves that they can contribute to, right? And then it's less about us saying like, oh, this is how you have to contribute to your community, or this is the community you should be contributing to. Like they've identified like this is my community, right? And community might be, I've had so many conversations with young people where it starts off with, oh, I want to be a basketball player when I grow up, or I want to make millions of dollars, right? I want to be an influencer and make millions of dollars. Okay, cool. Like as the adult sitting across from you, I'm going to accept that as your truth. Great. Let's be in conversation about like, why is that? Right. And over time, you get to a conversation that's like, oh, well, actually, part of the reason why I want to be an influencer is because I want to be able to have enough money to buy a home for my mom and for my family so that they're good. Right. Now that's talking about people other than yourself. That's having an impact on your community. Right. So now we've started to get to that why a little bit, and we can continue to get to it over and over.
I love that answer because
Me
that
too
is
on
the real.
WNHHLP
Awesome.
103.5 FM New Haven. Myself, Preston, and my partner in crime, Long Island Raised, Elm City made, EZ BlueZ is in the building. And why do you love that answer, Easy?
Well, I love the answer because that is the truest aspect of it. When we hear the term community, when we're automatically thinking in the grandest scale. You talked about it earlier, Preston. Where you think about how big the impact, and you need to overthink on how big the impact is. But we talk about it on this show all the time. Everyone drops a pebble into the water, and it is that small pebble that gives all these different waves out there, and it's how far that can go. And that is the truth aspect of it. Your community is your household, your community are your siblings, your community are your classmates, your community is a lot more than just the entire whole. And you can be selective with your community as long as you're not being mean. Just being real. you know so it's super super important, and I love where you can start to actually break it down, and they can see themselves in their community, because that is the most important thing. When you can see yourself in your community, then you are truly building what is necessary. And I love that we're in New Haven, where a young person can see Mayor Elliker walking across to Burgers to get his coffee in the morning, and maybe stop to have a conversation with him. You don't have that in other places. So, when your community can be accessible and reachable, that is very, 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 very important. As you are continuing to grow and build and all this fun stuff, I know we're talking a whole heck of a lot about the future projects and all that wonderful stuff. But you are also a business person. What exactly do you do there? And how awesome can we invest in that community that is your business? Oh, smooth.
Wow, thank you for that. Yeah, so my business is called Grin and Bear. We can talk about the name and the brand and all of that sort of stuff, but at its
Yes,
core,
sir.
it's working with whether it's schools, organizations, or companies that are really looking to create transformative experiences, but specifically with young people, right? I mean, that's where my expertise is. That's where I have so much energy and excitement. Is like, how are we supporting whether it's adults or young people directly in being able to do the kind of work that we've been talking about here? Give back to your community, build projects that have an impact on ourselves and the people around us, all that sort of stuff. So that's what I do. It's a lot of, at this point, it's a lot of consulting work, right? Whether it's with schools, with community organizations, with companies. So yeah, it's great. It's great to have, as honestly, it is a side hustle, right? Like, it's a side hustle for me because my day job is still with the future project, which over time here has shifted in where our focus is, but still is work that I'm incredibly excited about. So as far as, how do we support the work of Grin and Bear? If you're an organization, if you're an individual, if you're a community partner that's interested in bringing me in to collaborate, reach out. Like, that's the best way to engage with Grin and Bear.
Well, see, that's another thing, and I'm so glad you actually brought it up about the name and that type of aspect, because at least from where I come from, grin and bear was kind of just how you had to deal with reality. You didn't make the
Mm.
change; you grin and bared through it. But this entire concept is about making that change. So, what did you make you say, "Hey, let's call it," in my opinion, a negative? As so that gives you the opportunity to spin it to positive, or was it just like I like bears?
I mean, I do like bears, in theory, right? I don't go hang out with bears, because I have a respect for them. But nevertheless, no, grin and bear came from, I think, to your point, like that notion of grinning and bearing a thing, right? One, I feel like that is a way in which early on in my life, my younger years, like that was a way in which I endured things, and at a time, like, maybe did feel negative, but it's been sort of an evolution for me in that sort of idea, and how to utilize it in my life, right? And so the brand itself first came about when I was in college. It was at a time, I'm going to date myself at this point, but it was at a time where, like, making mixtapes or mixed CDs was a real thing, and that was the thing that I was, like, giving as gifts to people. So a bunch of, like, my friends that went to Quinnipiac University right down the road here from New Haven, and so it was a thing that, like, I gave mixed CDs to. I gave people mixed CDs, and I've always had a little bit of an entrepreneurial spirit, even from the youngest age, and so it wasn't just about creating a mixed CD from me personally. I was like, oh, well, I need to create some sort of, like, production company. So I created a production company called Grin and Bear It. And then, it's evolved over time. And to your point, Easy, of, like, it could be a negative thing. I'm somebody that's really liked, how do you take a negative and make it a positive, right? And so in that pursuit, in that work, I think about, how can we take this idea of Grin and Bear It? How can it be more about, like, the reality in life is you're going to have to endure things, right? That's just part of what life is. And so how can we do that in a way that's positive, but isn't just, painting a smile over something, but rather really enjoying the process and the enduring of a thing.
That's awesome, and I actually another answer that I happen to love. I also love the fact that you like bears in theory. The last time I hung out with a bear, it was like in the '80s. There was a movie about it. It was on Peacock. You can watch it. It was fantastic. Um, but at the end of the day, you sit there and you're constantly, investing in that positive aspect. Um, that's very difficult, especially coming out of the pandemic, and really, I'll say America more than other places have really been focused on a mental health journey.
Mm.
How are you able to navigate, and how much does the mental health journey work in what you're doing right now? Because how are you able to navigate and continue a positive attitude when, let's be honest, there are some days the world seems like it's on complete and total fire?
Yeah, yeah, that's real. You talked about the mental health journey. maybe the pandemic, not maybe, certainly the pandemic was a catalyst for so much conversation now in our everyday life around mental health, around things like therapeutic intervention, and for me, like that was a real thing, right? I think the pandemic was a moment in time where that feeling you're talking about of like, oh, the world seems really difficult in a way that I don't feel like I can totally handle at this point. Like that was a signal for me a couple months into the pandemic of, oh, you know what? Like I need to actually dedicate some of my resources to doing therapy, right? And so that's something that, as a result, engaged with in the pandemic and have kept up since then. Part of that was like as a result of a relationship that I was in and feeling like, oh, this is a relationship that I really care about, and there are some things I need to work through in my life that I haven't worked through yet. So like acknowledging, okay, it's time to do that, but also just generally, the pandemic, I think, just brought up so much that needed to be processed with friends and family members, certainly, but also from a trained professional, right? And so that's something that's been incredibly helpful in my journey. And I think within that journey is understanding that the full gamut of emotions that we experience, one, we have to acknowledge those day in and day out, right? So there are some days, to your point, Easy, like there are some days where it could be the beginning, middle, or end of the day where things feel heavy, right? And that heaviness is okay. And in fact, this is me speaking for me personally, like I need to accept that heaviness, right? Maybe not dwell in it, right? You don't want to dwell in it for longer than it is there, but accept that it is heavy and sort of peel back the layers and say like, what's behind that? So yeah, I'd say that like that's the journey for me. It's an evolving journey. Certainly that optimism and positivity that I like to bring to community like is there, but I think sometimes too you got to acknowledge whatever your truth is and create the right space for that, right? Like I think a lot of my time directly in school with young people, like there would be moments where I'd say to them like, hey, I'm not at my best today, right? I'd have to get up in front of some young people and in front of a group of them, and I'd just acknowledge like I'm not at my best. I don't have to dig into why that is, right? But I think that mere acknowledgement is helpful for me and helpful for them in that case, because it's showing one, a real humanness and a real desire to be vulnerable, which we don't. I think like an appropriate level of vulnerability is something that we don't have nearly enough of from adults with young people, and need to do more. And so that was the thing I tried to practice with them. But also I think creating the space with young people in one-on-one settings, in group settings where helping them to acknowledge whatever the emotions that they have, acknowledge those as a truth, but also support them in the okay, how do you move through this, or how do you want to move through this?
That's awesome. That is awesome. Thank you so much, first of all, for being 100% vulnerable and sharing. You on this show, you can share as much or as little as you want. It's really up to you. And I also love the fact that the answer really does lie in exactly what you started going through. It is a community. It is the community that supports you, because by building a good community around you, when those moments get tough, when the world is on fire, you have a safe place where you can go to, and you can fully, give yourself to and have those massively vulnerable moments. So it all becomes almost like a I don't want to say fulfilling prophecy, because usually that's a negative too, but you like taking negatives and turning into positives. So it's a self-fulfilling prophecy,
Yeah. To your point about like the community around you and how much like that is just so valuable in this journey around mental health and wellness. I am very fortunate. I want to give a special shout out to two folks that are a part of the New Haven community. Special shout out to Frank Brady, George Black. These are two people that I've had the opportunity to collaborate with over a decade, but more importantly, they are two of my very best friends. And they are, if you talk about people that you want in your corner, not just to like inspire and motivate you, but also have those moments of vulnerability and talk through things, they are incredible people, right? My point there is that, to your point, Easy, like the community that you put yourself in proximity to and open up to with that vulnerability is so important, right? And I'd say on a, even scaling back, one of the reasons why New Haven for the rest of my life, right? Like if I think about the place that I call home, Like while I grew up in a small town in New Hampshire called Kingston, the place that I refer to as home is New Haven. And I think a big part of that is that New Haven was a place that really embraced me, but also allowed me to unearth that vulnerability and really step into the kind of person, the adult, the man that I am and want to continue to be. So I think, like, to your point of community, those specific people, but like the people generally around us are so important.
You're in Brooklyn now, right?
I am in Brooklyn now. Yeah. So this is something. Yeah. Let's talk about it. Yeah. No, let's talk about that. Let's talk about it.
New Haven's home. I'm here in Brooklyn.
No, do we have time, right? I can tell.
Oh, we got plenty of time. Let's go.
We got time. Oh no, we called you out. We got time.
Yeah. Preston let me go for the 30-minute mark, and then he's like, "All right, I'm gonna get him. Get him." No, so I mentioned that part of the reason why I engaged in therapy during the pandemic was because of relationship. That relationship throughout the pandemic and during that time got more significant. And my girlfriend, my partner at the time, we made the decision to move to New York together, to Brooklyn together, and that was really hard because New Haven had been home, and I had such deep roots in New Haven for over a decade. And even prior to that, like I spent a little bit of time away from New Haven, but like shortly after graduating from Quinnipiac, had made a home there, had started a theater company in New Haven that still exists today. Shout out to New Haven Theater Company. But I mean, it's been home for my adult years, right? And so that was a big move, but it was a relationship that I felt really committed to and drawn to, and so we moved to Brooklyn together, and that did not last long. So I was here in Brooklyn, and made the decision, shortly into that move that I wanted to stick it out here. For at least 2 years, and part of that had been that it was always a dream as a young person to move to New York City and to feel like I could thrive there. And I moved to New York for a short amount of time when I was pursuing my career as an actor. It was a very desperate situation because being an actor early on in your career is just hard for a lot of reasons. And so it's real hard and it's real desperate. And being in New York, and that is not, from my perspective, it was not good for my physical, mental, or emotional health.
A lot of competition. A
lot of competition. And so I decided to stay here in Brooklyn. But what's funny is I was back in New Haven because I've been doing work consistently with Grin and Bear, with high school in the community still doing some work with them. And I was there in August, and I was only supposed to be there for a day. I was staying at the Omni. And I ended up staying the entire week because part of it was I was in New Haven. I was like, man, I am feeling really drawn and just really connected to this place. And what is that about? So I think it is always going to be home, New Haven, and it is a place that, like, still to this day I see as, if I were to buy a home or things like that, New Haven is the obvious choice for me. And yeah, it's a beautiful place to be.
I love that flex. I absolutely love that flex. I'm doing so well in my business that I own that I was able to get a night or two at the Omni, and that was just a great flex right there. That was great. I appreciate that's muscles.
It might be a flex. Yeah. We can put them up like that. It might be a flex, except the flex is really just getting the points up on your credit card to actually be able to get the room for free. That's what you do. So really, it's just a testament to how much I've been using my credit card while living in Brooklyn, New York.
Right. Word. You say potato. I say it's a platinum chain that might even have a spinner. That's all. That's all. How you got it is not our business. It's the fact that you got it is what matters. But no, it's
what so is something.
No, go ahead, homie.
No. Go ahead, because
I just think
it's like when you play basketball and then like you're with that other teammate. It's like you guys have that ego and you just snatch the basketball from him. I just snatched the basketball from you, and I didn't want to do that. I kind of want to be respectful, so you continue what you were saying, and then we'll just do the alley oop.
Okay. Y'all are Shaq and Kobe in the final year.
Yeah, man. Right, I don't want that energy. I really don't. I don't want that energy. We don't have the Shaq Kobe energy. We really don't. We kind of have like a LeBron kind of friendship, and I want to stay like that.
I like that.
Yeah.
Sure.
Do I get to be Chris?
We're talking about Quidditch, right?
You can.
Nice.
We're talking about.
We're talking about Quidditch, right?
We're not.
We're not talking about Quidditch.
We'll talk about that after the show.
Okay, I just want to make sure. No, uh, this has completely come off the rails today.
Yes.
I love it.
Mhm.
This is probably one of the most fun shows we've had in a long time.
But speaking of
Um,
sports, he has a gold medal. Easy.
what? You have a
Yeah.
gold medal? What do you
No,
have a gold medal in?
that's not. It's not like a gold medal. No, so I'm a competitive runner. I've done triathlons in the past. I'm now a marathon runner, and so I think the medal Preston is referencing is the New York City Marathon medal. Is like they do a great job with it. It's super impressive, right? And so I was flexing last year when I ran the marathon right in November this time of year. Ran the New York City Marathon, but the goal now is to run all 6 major marathons. So yeah.
This is so interesting because actually, this time last year, we had Audra from Chaser 8 on, who was in her car for the interview because Chaser 8 was playing the marathon. So yeah, that's you had a little bit of a New Haven connection throughout there too, and just it's so super interesting to see how like life truly is connected because you were talking about the absolute amazing George Black, and when you get off this interview, I want you to shoot him a text, tell him that you hung out with Dustin, and he's gonna hit you back with, oh, he has twins like me and my brother. And it's just gonna continue to go on from there. But he's so connected to this show. This is his old apartment.
Stop it.
Dead serious. I am in his old bedroom right now.
Crazy.
Wow. Like his most recent apartment?
No, this is about 2 or 3 apartments ago.
Oh, okay. Because I was gonna say, like, I've hung out a lot in that apartment, so like that would
No,
be
no,
wild
not
if that was the case.
not the one, further, not the one further over. The one that's in New Haven, not I forgot the other spot. What it was called.
Got it.
It is what it is.
Yeah, I'll hit him up after this. That'll be really funny.
Definitely on WNHH LP 103.5 FM New Haven. Myself, Preston, with my partner in crime, Long Island Rays, Elm City made EZ BlueZ is in the building. The light bulb's above your head. Easy, go right ahead.
Yes, I was gonna say, hey Preston, alley-oop.
Let's go. What for Brooklyn, for living in Brooklyn, Connecticut, what does Brooklyn not have that New Haven has?
So Brooklyn, New York, what does it have that New Haven doesn't have?
Yeah.
I mean, listen, I'll say this, like the food scene in New Haven is top notch.
Absolutely.
And there's just much more of it in Brooklyn, New York, right? Like, there are probably like 8 to 10 places in New Haven that at any one time I'd be like, yep, that's the spot I'm going to. That's going to be incredible food, and I'm excited about it. There's just so much. I mean, both places have incredible food, so I'm not saying that one has incredible and one doesn't. It's just like the quantity in Brooklyn and in New York generally. There's just more of it, right? And so, and I think that that's representative like of how I feel about Brooklyn in relation to New Haven, right? Like, what's really cool is like I can go to New Haven still, which I do pretty regularly, and walk around New Haven and run into like 10 different people that I've got a history with over the last like 10 or 15 years and say hi and run into them, and that's great. And that happens too in Brooklyn, which is cool and unexpected, right? I thought moving to New York, at least this time around, and living in Brooklyn, like I thought I would lose that, and that was something I really love about New Haven. And so far, given the ways that I've engaged in community here, I still get that. I can walk around my neighborhood. I can walk around different like micro neighborhoods throughout Brooklyn and see people I know and run into each other and chop it up for a couple minutes. And so I think both places have that equally. It's just about it's just larger in Brooklyn just because of scale,
True. Now, with all that networking and connections, did that lead up to having your own podcast, The Man Up? Please tell me about that.
Yeah, so this is going to go back to George Black and Frank Brady, actually. So since we got time, it's got to be about 8 years ago.
Wow.
George, Frank, and I, we all know each other through the Future Project. We became incredible friends because of that work, and then built our friendship from there. And one of the things we used to do, because all of us are into music in different ways, we would get together, the three of us, chop it up as friends, have that kind of space as younger men at the time, like talking about, who do we want to be in our community? Who do we want to be as men going into our lives? Like all that kind of stuff, right? Talk about our big dreams and goals. And then we'd play music together, right? And so the first step to that was we had a band called the Man Band, which we did some gigs around Connecticut. We didn't spend too much time on the name of the band. So that eventually, doing that work, having that space with George and Frank, eventually George and I started Men Up as a place really to do that sort of identity work, specifically around manhood and masculinity. It ended up being young people. We opened it up to all people, but really, I think because of our expertise, because of the opportunities we had, we were doing workshops, seminars, things like that, with young people talking about, what is a healthy sense of manhood and masculinity that we can bring to our world, and redefine those ideas, because a lot of them are incredibly harmful to all of us, right? And so we did a lot of that work for years. We started the podcast sort of version 1 during that time, and then a couple of years ago, it was right around when the pandemic was sort of coming up. George and I, for obvious reasons, stepped away from Men Up because we couldn't do the work in person anymore. I think, we were just, focused on different things professionally. So we stepped away from it. And then during the pandemic, I really needed a creative project to dig into. And so I had this moment where, I was in my late 30s, wasn't married yet, still not married, but had this moment where there were guys in my life, guys like George and Frank, that I had this moment of realizing that, like, these people that I really rely on and I have incredible relationships with, a lot of them don't know each other, and is the only time they're going to get to know each other at like some big event, like, having a kid or getting married or things like that. And for some reason, I just got really inspired by that. And so I invited 3 of my best friends we just did a small podcast, which was like 7 episodes long. It was reflecting on the Michael Jordan Last Dance documentary, because we were all the same age. We lived through that experience. We're all into basketball. We're all into the culture in that way. And so what was really cool was to watch their engagement with each other and their dynamic be almost immediate. These 3 guys that didn't know each other, that were from different chapters of my life. One guy I've known since 3rd grade. One guy is my best friend from college, and one guy is one of my best friends from my professional career years here. And to just see them really vibe was awesome. And then I was like, maybe we need to continue this in some way. And so that's where the Men Up podcast in its current version really came from. And so, we're 5 seasons in. We took a little bit of a break here in the last 8 to 10 months. But 5 seasons in, had some really incredible guests and really powerful conversations.
A lot of motivational speaking, I assume.
A lot of motivational speaking. What's funny? I don't know if you all experience this with the show that you have. But there's it's almost ridiculous. There's a ridiculous level of clout that you get simply by saying, "Oh yeah, I have a podcast and we've done 7 seasons." Like, people think like you're some big deal. I'm just like, no, we're guys that turn on the mic and do a little bit of prep work and talk about our own ideas of manhood and masculinity, how to shift that, and all that kind of stuff. But it's it's funny. It's funny how that happens.
Oh yeah, all the time. It is rather hysterical because Preston and I, we're just 2 average everyday human beings, and we go out into the world average everyday human beings. But then, like, if people like start to recognize us and stuff, it's kind of like, oh yeah, we do that. Oh yeah, we do that too. Oh yeah, we do that too. And then we're hosting a panel at the Bridgeport Film Festival, and it was like, wait a second, we were just sitting on the couch playing that Spider-Man game. I'm going to continue to reference the Spider-Man game because supposedly that's supposed to be really good. I don't really play video games, so I just, I'm living it up to you guys.
See, you're a parent, so you have the opportunity of just watching a great movie while your kids struggle in this game mentally and physically, because it did a little damage to your hands. But
No,
Christian, will we ever Christian, will we ever see a reunion of the Man Band? Are we gonna have like a secret show at Cafe 9 one day? Like, talk to me about it. Is there
I can make that happen.
EP on Spotify? Like, we're dying to know right now because it's very intriguing.
That is an incredible question, Preston, and both you and Easy. What I'm going to ask you to do is put the full court press, pressure-wise, on George and Frank, because I'm all about it. Like, so as somebody who has been a performer at heart, since I was a young kid, like, I'm always trying to find ways to perform in some way. And yeah, I think that for a time we had a thing with the man band. It was super cool. And I think folks, I think both George and Frank just wanted to focus on other things. But I bring it up every like 6 months or so. I'm like, hey, when are we going to start playing music again? Yeah. I got to grind them down slowly. So if you guys want to put that pressure on as well too, maybe sooner than later we'll have the Cafe 9 reunion show.
Okay.
I will put this pressure on just right here for everyone and all of New Haven. Let's do it. We'll put Shane. You guys, we'll share a bill with you. We'll do a bill. Shane Penguin, just the now 2-time nominated for New England Music Award for Best Punk Act.
Go.
Shane Penguin,
Wow.
and the man band will put on a show at Cafe 9 in 2024. This is gonna happen.
Wow, 2024.
Who was the singer? Who was the drummer? Who was the guitar?
Or were you like a boy band? Because I kind of see you guys kind of like as like a boy band.
Well, I mean, that's why we call ourselves the man band, right? Like, I think secretly we wanted to be a boy band, but we were like, we're grown men. We can't be a boy band. That's ridiculous, right? And so the way that it worked out is I play guitar. So, very much like the musical part of it was on me. Frank would often do some sort of like vocal percussion of some sort, and like some sort of like, either spoken word or rapping of some sort, because Frank has that skill and he's incredible that way as an artist. And then George was our singer, because I mean, George has just got an incredible voice, and each one of us, Frank and I could do the background vocals, harmonize, and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, it was a fun time. It was very stripped down acoustic and stuff, but
nice.
We had some fun, and we had some pretty cool, interesting gigs, in our time. So it was a lot of fun.
It's gonna happen now.
Oh wow.
Oh yeah.
I know we're talking some type about future goals, but what are some goals that you have already in store for the rest of 2023 going into 2024?
You know what? I love that, because this weekend I was just sitting down and saying, as I'm sure there are some folks out there too listening, that we're going into our last quarter here of the year. So what can we do to some of those goals that maybe we haven't started on yet, or have been delayed, or just need to finish? So for me, it's a couple things. Like, one, I really want to get in, at this point, it's a half marathon. I was in training for marathon, and then I had a knee injury. I had to get surgery, so I've been recovering from that. So half marathon here in November. There's a whole bunch of work, obviously my future project work, but also several other opportunities I have with Grin and Bear, that it's really about like launching that work in this quarter in different ways, which I'm really excited about. And then there's some creative projects. This last month, one of the things I had the opportunity to do was take a stand-up comedy class, and then what that opened up was some open mics, but then also we had a showcase and whatever, and was able to be pretty good at it in some ways, at least from a first timer standpoint. I've got some opportunities there lining up, so I think continue to pursue that a little bit more and see what happens there.
Nice.
So we're best friends now.
Because I friends.
Yeah, no, because I just did like the entire same journey that you just were on. I just actually finished up the comedy thing and the whole nine, and now I have like my own comedy journal that I have to write in and stuff. So yeah.
Oh, I love it. Easy.
So our paths will cross 1.5 million times from this point on. See, Preston does this on purpose.
I do what on purpose?
You hook us up with guests that are gonna be like, you two should like just hang out.
That's not purpose. That's my responsibility. I mean, like, you talk about like, who do you want me to get? A monotone duck or something? I gotta get someone that like has some kind of impact in this world. I can't just like
yes.
Is that like
I'm
I
just so
spin the wheel on this?
I'm just so glad that it's real people being real people, and I love that. There's no dream houses or anything that is cardboard, and that is fantastic.
Well, Easy, one of the things I'll say is I think that what we just unlocked is that in this show with the man band at Cafe 9, I think we now know that you and I are at least doing a solid 5 minutes of comedy somewhere in that show. Which is great. I think that's what we figured out.
I love it. Oh, I love it. Oh, that's so good. That is
don't
so
get him
good.
started. Please don't get him started.
Oh yeah, no, don't get me started because this won't.
You triggered a lot of good stuff in his training right now. You don't get him started. He's gonna go on the whole entire week knowing him.
No.
What are some things you are most thankful for? What are things you are thankful for in your life, and what is some stuff the most proud of? of as we close out this interview?
Wow. Things that I'm grateful for. So first, foremost, always, my mom, Jackie Shaboo. She, yeah, I mean, the amount that she has done for me in my life, like I can't even begin to like rattle off how much she's done for me. But the point is, grateful for her every single day, and specifically grateful that in my adulthood, her and I have been able to develop relationships as adults and like each other as people. And it's not, I mean, of course, we're always going to be mother-son, right? But like the fact that we're like able to really get to know each other as adults in that way and enjoy each other, I mean, it's something I'm always grateful for. And the fact that I have this time with her, that she's still alive, that she's still healthy, all that sort of stuff. Also, friends, right? I mentioned George Black, I mentioned Frank Brady, but I have an incredible network of folks in New Haven, here in Brooklyn, across the world, that are just like incredible friends, incredible people. Like they're good to me, they're good to the world, like they're inspiring and motivating. And so I'm so grateful to have those people in my life. And then there's, you know, as it might sound obvious, right? But I'm incredibly grateful that I have my physical health and wellness and well-being, right? The fact that I can, even with, you know, a minor injury, right? The fact that I have, you know, my entire body is like functioning and healthy and well, and I can go run and I can still create and all those sorts of things. You know, I think maybe it's just turning 40. Like I just turned 40 back in May, like, and it was a real moment of like, oh, this might be the halfway point, right? It was a real moment of like, to your point, like being grateful and stepping back and just saying like, what are the things that are, you know, maybe really basic and obvious, but are still like things I'm incredibly grateful for. So those are a few of those things. And then proud of, is that the second part of it, Preston?
Yes.
Proud of. There are, you know, I'm really proud of a lot of the projects that I've been able to take on in my time in New Haven. Now, you know, I think things like having something like New Haven Theater Company that, you know, was something that started as an idea back in like 2006 and 2007, started as a group of people that were performing primarily as improv actors in the back of bar on like Tuesday and Thursday nights, right? Like, and to have that turn into a theater company, like a semi-professional theater company in New Haven that still exists today and still does shows downtown, is incredibly a thing to be really proud of, right? And I think any of the things that I'm incredibly proud of often came within some sort of team with some sort of like community collaborative effort. So that the work that have been able to do through the future projects, specifically at high school in the community in New Haven, like that's work that I'm really proud of, and proud of that team and the work that we did there. And proud of the work that I get to do now with my own work through Grin and Bear with organizations like Design for America that does really cool design work on college campuses around the country, work I still get to do with high school in the community, those kind of things. I get to like be collaborative with folks to try to do good in the world. Like I'm really proud of that work.
Christian, we appreciate you. We have only a couple seconds left of this interview, unfortunately, but before we go, please let anyone know how to contact you and how to reach you, and then we just do the whole closeout. So this little bit amount of time is for you.
Well, again, I thank you both so much for having me on this show, and just continuing to find ways to be a part of the New Haven community, even if I'm not currently there in person every day. So I appreciate y'all so much. If you want to hit me up to either ask questions from this or are interested in partnering in some way, I think the easiest thing is just find me on Instagram at Christian Shaboo. Same thing, Facebook wise. Those are the best ways to reach me. So thanks y'all.
Definitely, Christian. We appreciate you on Behind the Brand on WNHH LP 103.5 FM New Haven. Myself, Preston, and my partner in crime, who's probably going to have a reunion show until 2024.
Let's go!
Blues. Thank you, Christian. Appreciate you.
Dreaming of a better home, we want focused on trying to hone this craft, witchcraft. I hope the Brujas let this last.